October 25, 2007. The sun was setting behind the jagged peaks of Afghanistan's Korengal Valley, a place soldiers called the most dangerous place on Earth. It was supposed to be a routine patrol. Get in, clear the path, get out. Salvatore Giunta had done this a dozen times before. He knew the terrain. He knew the risks. What he didn't know was that tonight would be different. He was just 22 years old, an infantry team leader with the 173rd Airborne Brigade. Young but experienced, steady under pressure, trusted by the men around him. As they moved along a narrow mountain trail, everything seemed normal, calm even. But that's when things usually go wrong. Without warning, gunfire exploded from the ridgelines above. Machine guns, AK-47s, RPGs, a textbook L-shaped ambush, planned, precise, and deadly. The sky lit up with tracer fire. 2 soldiers went down immediately. The rest scrambled for cover. They were under siege. Giunta was hit, twice. One round slammed into his chest plate, another sliced through his shoulder. But he didn't stop, because through the chaos, he saw something no soldier should ever have to see. One of his teammates, Specialist Brennan, was being dragged away by enemy fighters. In that moment, Giunta made a decision most people couldn't imagine. He left cover. He ran straight into the gunfire, alone. What happened next would make history. But for Salvatore Giunta, it wasn't about medals. It was about one thing: not leaving a brother behind. To understand what Salvatore Giunta did that night, you have to understand where he was. The Korengal Valley isn't just a remote corner of Afghanistan. It was one of the deadliest battlegrounds of the entire war. Steep cliffs, dense forests, narrow trails with no room to maneuver. It was a place where the enemy didn't fight from across a battlefield. They fought from 10 feet away, hidden in the rocks, waiting. For the soldiers of the 173rd Airborne, every patrol meant walking into the unknown. They were under constant threat: sniper fire, booby traps, surprise attacks. There was no safe zone, no downtime. You were either alert or you were dead. Giunta's platoon was in the middle of a 14-month deployment. They'd already been through countless firefights, watched friends get hit, and carried the weight of loss. But you don't get to process that when you're out there. You compartmentalize it, you focus, you keep going. And that's exactly what they were doing that evening. Another patrol, another long walk back to base. It was routine, exhausting, and just like so many other nights. But that's what made it dangerous. Because in the Korengal, the moment things feel normal is usually the moment everything goes wrong. They were just 30 minutes from the outpost when the trail curved. The valley narrowed, and the silence, always a red flag in combat, grew thick, too thick. Giunta knew something was off, the kind of tension you feel in your bones. But they had no choice but to keep moving. That's when the mountain lit up. Not with light, but with bullets. It happened fast. 1 second they were walking single file along a narrow path, thick forest on one side, a steep drop on the other. The next, the entire ridgeline erupted in gunfire, a coordinated L-shaped ambush. Rounds cracked through the air from both the front and the flank. RPGs slammed into trees. Dirt exploded into the air, the kind of violence that scrambles your brain, freezes your body. Specialist Ekrode was hit immediately, then Specialist Gallardo. 2 men down, no cover, no time. The platoon dove for whatever shelter they could find: rocks, small dips in the terrain, anything. Giunta hit the ground hard, bullets slamming into the dirt inches from his head. And then, he was hit. A round struck his body armor dead center. It knocked the wind out of him but didn't pierce. A second round sliced his upper arm, drawing blood, but he kept moving. All around him, chaos, shouting, screaming, calls for medics. The ambush was designed to kill quickly and vanish just as fast. That's when Giunta looked ahead and saw something that made his blood run cold. Specialist Brennan, one of his closest friends, was missing. And not just missing. He could see him, barely, being dragged away by 2 shadowy figures. Not carried, dragged. The enemy was trying to take him. In that moment, Giunta didn't freeze, didn't call for backup, didn't wait for orders. He stood up and ran straight toward the gunfire. Giunta moved fast, too fast for fear to catch up. Rounds zipped past him as he sprinted up the slope. His boots hit the dirt hard, slipping on loose rock, but he didn't stop. He was running into an ambush, alone, and he knew it. But he also knew something else. If he hesitated, even for a second, Specialist Brennan was gone. Up ahead, barely visible through the trees, he saw them. 2 insurgents dragging Brennan's limp body deeper into the darkness. One was armed, the other moved quickly, focused on escape. Giunta raised his rifle and opened fire. One of the fighters dropped instantly. The other disappeared into the tree line. Giunta didn't stop to assess. He rushed forward, scanning for more threats, heart pounding, hands steady. He found Brennan, unconscious, bleeding badly, shot multiple times, pale, barely breathing. Giunta grabbed him under the arms and started dragging him back toward cover. Every muscle in his body burned. The weight of his gear, the weight of Brennan, it didn't matter. He had to move. Behind him, his squad was still returning fire. Medics shouted directions. The whole valley was alive with gunfire and adrenaline. Somehow, he made it back. Giunta dropped to his knees as the medic took over, applying pressure, checking vitals. But it was already too late. Brennan had lost too much blood. Despite everything, despite the run, the shots, the fight, he died in Giunta's arms. Giunta didn't speak. He just sat there, covered in dust, wounded, silent. He had done everything he could. He had gone farther than anyone else would have. But it hadn't been enough. And in war, sometimes even your best isn't enough. The firefight eventually ended. The enemy melted back into the mountains just as quickly as they'd appeared. What was left behind was silence and loss. The platoon gathered their wounded. They carried their dead. Among them was Brennan. The walk back to the outpost was long, quiet. No one said much. There wasn't anything to say. At the base, Giunta was treated for his wounds. Nothing life-threatening, just torn skin, bruises, a bandaged arm. Physically, he'd be fine. Mentally, that was a different story. The army quickly realized what had happened, what Giunta had done. He had charged an active ambush, alone, under fire. He'd shot and killed an enemy soldier, saved a wounded comrade, and pushed forward before anyone else could catch up. But Giunta didn't see it that way. In interviews later, he'd say, "I didn't do anything special. I did what anyone would have done." But that wasn't true. Most people don't run into gunfire. Most people don't chase down enemies to rescue a friend. In 2010, President Barack Obama presented him with the Medal of Honor, the first living recipient from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Cameras flashed. Applause filled the East Room of the White House. But Giunta didn't smile. As the citation was read, he stood still, thinking about Brennan, thinking about what wasn't saved. When he finally spoke to the press, he said, "I'm not the one who earned this. I just did what I was trained to do. The real heroes are the ones who didn't come home." He wore the medal for his team, for Brennan, for every soldier who never got a ceremony. Because in Salvatore Giunta's eyes, the highest honor wasn't the medal. It was being there when it mattered, and doing the right thing, even when it felt impossible. Salvatore Giunta didn't ask for recognition. He didn't seek glory. He just did what he thought was right. He ran toward danger when others would have frozen, and he carried the weight of that moment every day since. This isn't just a story about war. It's about loyalty, responsibility, and the kind of courage that doesn't fade when the bullets stop. Now you know what happened in the Korengal Valley, what real bravery looks like, and what it costs. If this story moved you, share it. Let more people understand what sacrifice really means, and honor the heroes who didn't make it home.